Hi, I thought I'd give a little impromptu talk about the significance of the Messiah's birth, starting with the Old Testament. If you go way back to Genesis, you have the fall of man and God's pronouncement that there would be one who would be born of the seed of a woman who would crush the head of the serpent. You have a line of descent starting then that goes to Abraham. And Abraham is promised a son through whom blessing will come to all the nations on earth. That son is Isaac. God makes a promise. Now, you have to understand blessing in the context of what went before. Man was created in blessing and then came under the curse because of sin, and death came about and separation from God. And then God promises through Abraham blessing would come about, which is the overturning of the curse of the fall. And so Abraham's promised a son through whom blessing would come. Sarah's not able to conceive, and God miraculously intervenes and brings about the birth of Isaac. Then God tells Abraham something very strange. Take your son Isaac, take him up to Mount Moriah, which is later where the temple was built, and sacrifice him. Abraham is baffled. He knows that through his son, blessing would come to the world, and so he puts him on the altar and goes to sacrifice him, and his arm with the knife is held back. God intervenes, and a ram is provided in place of Isaac. So Abraham sacrifices the ram. Interestingly, later on, David takes the same site and uses it to make a sacrifice to avert a plague that has come upon Israel because of his disobedience. And the plague is averted when he makes that sacrifice. And that's where the temple was built, and all the sacrifices were made for the people of Israel, all the sacrifices for payment from sin. So God makes a promise to Abraham to bring blessing, which means overturning a curse, to all the nations on earth. Abraham's told to be he'll be the father of many goyim, by the way, many Gentiles. That might surprise people. And so you have this promise of blessing through the seed of Abraham. Eventually, Israel has a king, and we're told that through that King of Israel, the anointed King of Israel, will come blessing to the whole earth. It's in Psalm 72. The promise to Abraham is echoed, and it talks about blessings coming through this Davidic son. And you begin to have prophecies, such as in Isaiah, where it says that there'll be a virgin who gives child. The child's name is Emmanuel, meaning God is with us. It's a symbolic child, we're told in the book of Isaiah, symbolic of what's to come. Isaiah saw judgment coming on Israel, and one child was named "The prey speeds, the spoil hastes." Another child was named "A remnant shall return," and then there's the child Emmanuel. God is with us to save us and deliver us. Isaiah also speaks about a light. In chapter 9, he speaks about a light shining in Galilee of the Gentiles. The people in darkness have seen a great light shining in Galilee. And then he talks about, for unto us a child is born, unto us a son is given, and the government will be upon his shoulders, and his name will be called Wonderful Counselor, Everlasting Father, Prince of Peace. Who could that be? Then Isaiah speaks about one who will come and be a light to the Gentiles in Isaiah chapter 49. But he also talks about one who will come and be a sacrifice to pay for sin in Isaiah 53. The prophet Micah even spoke of when and where the Messiah came from and where he will be born. It says that in Bethlehem, one will be born whose origins are from ancient days, actually from days of eternity in the Hebrew. And it says that this one who will come will be born in Bethlehem, a small town. So this is the background in the Hebrew Bible for the birth of the Messiah. And of course, we know Jesus was born in Bethlehem. He was born with the purpose of coming and removing the curse. Even as Christmas carols say, that he came to make his blessings known far as the curse is found. So you see, he came as that ultimate seed of the woman who came to crush the serpent's head and bring the blessing of Abraham to people all over the earth. He said his kingdom would spread throughout the earth, even though it might start out as small as a tiny mustard seed. It would grow to be the biggest kingdom in the garden. Daniel said that as well in chapter 2, that God's kingdom would become a mountain that filled the earth. And so the birth of Jesus is not just a wonderful story of a poor and humble teacher born in Bethlehem. It's a story of one who is the wonderful counselor, the mighty God, the everlasting Father, the Prince of Peace, as it says in Isaiah 9. It's the story of the one who shined his light in Bethlehem, in the place in Galilee he ministered. Pagan darkness is dispelled as people come to the one true God. It has to do with the blessing of Abraham coming to all nations. It has to do with the seed of the woman defeating the serpent, defeating evil. And so that's what Christmas is really all about. It has to do with a second Adam coming to give us a new start, that our sins might be paid for and forgiven, and that we could be remade in the image of God, that the curse could be removed from us, the curse we deserve because of our sins, the curse that was fulfilled when Jesus died on the cross. And so let's remember at Christmas what it's really all about. Not just a nice story of a baby born in Bethlehem as prophesied by Micah 700 years before he came, but one who would be a light to the nations as Isaiah prophesied around the same time. One who would die for the sins of his people and rise again, as Isaiah said in chapter 53. So I want to wish you all a Merry Christmas, and I hope that in the midst of all the food and presents and whatever you're doing, Zoom meetings with your family, that you wouldn't forget the real meaning of Christmas and what it's all about. Merry Christmas to everybody.